The council chamber of Vecthar Prime fell silent as Kale stepped forward, his worn boots echoing against the obsidian floor. Around him, towering figures of a dozen alien species loomed, warriors, diplomats, and hunters from across the galactic concord. Their eyes, in all their varied forms, fixed upon him with a mixture of disdain and curiosity. Kale was human, a Terran, and in this corner of the galaxy that meant he was soft. This is the volunteer? Ambassador Thexan's mandibles clicked with barely concealed amusement. The insectoid diplomat gestured dismissively. Earth sends us a child for the Great Hunt? Murmurs rippled through the assembly. The Great Hunt was no mere tradition. It was the Concord's sacred trial where warriors proved their worth by surviving the deadly moon of Cathar 9 for 3 planetary rotations. Only the strong emerged. The weak became statistics. Kale kept his expression neutral, though his jaw tightened. At 28 years old, he'd seen combat in the outer colonies, survived pirate raids, and spent 2 years navigating the brutal politics of first contact. But here, among species that evolved under twin suns and crushing gravity, humanity's credentials meant nothing. Perhaps the Terrans misunderstood the requirements, added General Croth, a hulking Urgalian whose forearms crossed over his barrel chest. This is not a training exercise. This is where legends are forged, or where pretenders die screaming. Kale finally spoke, his voice steady. I understand the stakes, General. That's why I'm here. Laughter erupted from several delegates. Even the normally stoic Vaxillian observers seemed amused, their crystalline forms refracting light in what Kale had learned to recognize as their equivalent of mocking laughter. From the shadows at the far end of the chamber, a figure moved. The laughter died instantly. Rovik emerged into the light, and Kyle understood why the room had fallen silent. The Khazari hunter was a legend even among legends. Over 7 feet of corded muscle covered in midnight black fur marked with silver scars, each one a story of survival. His species were apex predators from a death world that made Earth look like a vacation resort. Twin tusks curved from his lower jaw, and his amber eyes held the calculating gaze of something that had killed more times than Kale had drawn breath. Rovik had won the Great Hunt 17 times. No other living being had more than 5 victories. The hunter approached Kale slowly, circling him like prey. Kyle forced himself to remain still, meeting Rovik's gaze when the towering alien leaned close enough that Kyle could smell the sharp, metallic scent of his breath. You are small, Rovik growled, his voice like grinding stone. Weak, fragile. He tapped Kale's chest with one claw. Soft skin, dull teeth, no natural armor. The Khazari straightened to his full height. Why does Earth send you to die? Kale had prepared for this moment during the 3-month journey to Vecthar Prime. He'd studied the Concord's cultures, learned their languages, memorized their customs. But standing before Rovik, he realized all that preparation was meaningless. There was only one language that mattered here. Truth. Because someone had to come. Kale said quietly, and because my people don't measure strength by claws or fangs. We measure it by what we do when everything says we should quit. Rovik's eyes narrowed. Pretty words from soft flesh. Then let me show you actions instead. Kale unbuckled his combat jacket, letting it fall. Across his torso, a map of scars told their own story. Plasma burns, blade wounds, the distinctive puncture marks of a Kelvasian venom spike. I've buried friends. I've starved. I've been hunted. And I'm still here. For a long moment, Rovik studied the scars. Then, to the shock of everyone present, he laughed, a deep, rumbling sound that shook the chamber. You know what I see when I look at you, Terran? Rovik circled again, but this time there was something different in his posture. Respect. I see something the rest of this Concord has forgotten. I see a species that evolved as prey, yes, prey, on a world with predators faster, stronger, more deadly than them. And you know what those weak, soft, fragile humans did? Rovik's voice rose, addressing the entire assembly now. They survived. They didn't grow claws, they made them from stone and metal. They didn't grow armor. They forged it from what their world provided. They couldn't outrun predators, so they outlasted them. They hunted creatures 10 times their size with nothing but cunning and coordination, and the sheer stubborn refusal to accept extinction. He turned back to Kale, and something fierce burned in those amber eyes. You want to know why Terrans scare me? Because when the universe said you're too weak to survive, they looked it in the eye and said, watch me. The chamber was utterly silent now. Rovik placed a massive hand on Kale's shoulder. The weight of it was considerable, but Kale didn't buckle. These fools see your soft skin and think you fragile. I see a species that conquered their world despite being fragile, and that is what makes you dangerous. He raised his voice to carry to every corner of the chamber. This Terran hunts alongside me. Any who wish to challenge this may face us both. No one moved. No one dared. Rovik leaned close to Kale, his voice dropping to a private rumble. You will likely die on Cathar 9, Terran. The odds are against you. Kale allowed himself a slight smile. They always are. Something like approval flickered across Rovik's face. Then we leave at dawn, brother. He emphasized the last word deliberately, and the gasps from the assembly confirmed what Kale suspected. In Khazari culture, that term was sacred, reserved only for those proven worthy of the highest trust. As Rovik led Kyle from the chamber, Ambassador Thexun's voice called out weakly, This is highly irregular. Then file a complaint, Rovik called back without turning, while my brother and I prepare to show you all what real strength looks like. Walking through the corridors of Vecthar Prime beside the legendary hunter, Kale felt the weight of what lay ahead. Cathar 9 would be hell. Most didn't survive their first hunt. But then again, humans had a long history of beating bad odds. And now, for the first time since arriving in conquered space, Kale wasn't facing those odds alone.